Yeah, this session is about where we have been, where we are now, and where we can go and we believe we should go over the next 6 years. It's a challenge I'd like to throw down to everyone within the Project Play network who believes in this vision, who sees the value of it, treat it as something of a North Star, and maybe some ideas on how we might get there. But some background before I bring in our incredible panelists here. A few slides, because it sounds like 60 to 70% of our audience is new to the Project Play Summit. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. So a little bit of background. So, like, since 2013, whoops. All right. John, I might need a little bit of help here. Here we go. So since 2013, Project Play has, developed ideas, insights, and opportunities to build healthy children and communities through sports. Very intentionally chosen language. Together, and I really mean together. We are a facilitator. Aspen is an aggregator of the best ideas, insights, opportunities. We put them before you in a variety of different platforms. But together, we have gotten a lot done, right? Members of our network have played major roles in driving progress across the youth sport landscape over the past decade. Number one, we've established simply the value of youth sports. It's hard to remember, but a decade ago, people didn't. There was all sorts of ideas people had about youth sports, but like putting them in one place and packaging the value proposition in a way that could be put before philanthropists, before corporations, before other stakeholders, it just wasn't done. So folks like, ACSM and Nike and other folks helped put together these charts. We packaged it all up into our seminal playbook, Sport for All, Play for Life, a playbook to get every kid in the game, 8 strategies for the 8 sectors that touch the lives of kids. Also, how active communities do better. They're just healthier. Number 2, simply raised awareness of participation gaps. I can tell you 10, 12 years ago, people didn't quite appreciate that there was an access gap in sports. They didn't know about kids in Baltimore were participating in sports at half the rate and around the country as kids. And now it's kind of a well-understood part of the language and how we organize ourselves. That was done through, again, partners who have helped, support, our National State of Play report and, reports like our school-based series. Created frameworks to rally around, not just the seminal framework from 2013, but the school sports playbook. Again, 8 strategies for superintendents and principals to begin to reimagine sports in schools so that the 4 and 10 kids who do play sports, it could be a better, healthier experience. And the 6 and 10 who do not, here are some ways to think about doing it. Student-led clubs, etc. The Children's Rights and Sports Package, which you're going to hear some very exciting things about later today. Unlocked more than $100 million for local programs. I mean, geez, the Wilson Foundation itself has put more than $100 million in youth sport programs into, in their regions alone, but there have been many others who have said, these are strategies that can shape our grant making or can unlock new grant making. Again, this is incredible credit to everyone who's part of this network. And this network of 20,000 or so leaders who we communicate with on a monthly basis. So where do we go from here? We've never done this before. We've never had a KPI. We've never put a number on the table that we said we should be shooting for in terms of youth sport participation. And so let me tell you about what 63 by 30 is going to be. This is a bit of a preview going forward. Organized sport participation for youth ages 6 to 17 is now tracked annually by the National Children's Health Survey, which is administered by the U.S. Census Bureau. They started doing it in 2016. Through their Healthy People 2030 initiative, and this is not a Trump administration thing or a Biden administration thing, it's an interagency goal. It's the nation's public health goals. They set a goal, the federal government, this interagency group did, of 63.3% participation by the year 2030. So what we did within Project Play is work with Health and Human Services, along with an array of other researchers, to help people understand the value proposition in getting to 63%. And so what we know in a peer-reviewed journal piece that came out a couple months ago is that if 63% of youth play sports in this country, up from what is 53% now, and it was 51% when we analyzed it, there would be, I'm not going to read all these numbers, you can see them here, but kids are basically going to be a lot healthier. The system is going to save a lot more money in terms of medical and healthcare costs. There will be increased worker productivity, and there will be about 1.8 million quality years of life saved, simply because kids who play sports, the research shows, are going to be more physically healthy and more mentally healthy. So these are just very bare minimum numbers, and don't get into a whole bunch of other great stuff that can happen when kids play sports. But this is the North Star. So the question is, how do we move from 51 or 53% to 63% by the end of the decade? We don't have a Ministry of Sports in this country. We don't have some $80 billion agency that can drive on this stuff. We have us. We've got folks. We've got a lot of folks who are working in a lot of communities and in a lot of different ways. So what's key to this is going to be, yes, policy, and there will be a panel on this later, but it's collaboration, mobilization at the national, the state, and the local level. Whoops, jumping ahead there. And to do that, in support of this vision, Aspen will be forming 3 groups in the coming months. One is a 63 by 30 national table. It's the next iteration of our Project Play 2024 group of industry-leading organizations, most of which are returning and will be joined by several new members. Plus, 2 new groups, a state-based table in Colorado called Project Play Colorado, and also a Project Play Communities Council. So again, in the coming weeks, we'll be finalizing these tables, but we're well on our way, and look out for more details and a series of announcements to come. So, to help me unpack the opportunity here, I'd like to introduce Kim Hegardt. She is president of the Names Family Foundation in Tacoma. She will be a member of and a supporter of the Project Play Communities Council, which is comprised of communities that we've worked with to landscape their state of play. These are communities that are dialed into the 8 plays and the filters and kind of speak our language, and we can help them think about how to activate against those 8 plays. And it'll be like a learning table, a place to share ideas, and what's working in their communities. So exciting about that. There are other learning tables out there. It's fantastic. This is our way of supporting those who are doing state of play reports with us. We also have Christina Hixson, who is Senior Director of Partnerships at UCHealth, and she will be at the center of the catalyst for Project Play Colorado, which will be our first state-based effort. And finally, a familiar face and a good friend and just one heck of a guy. I've known him for a long time. Kevin Martinez, who is Vice President of Corporate Citizenship at ESPN, and he is repping on this panel the 63 by 30 table that we will be forming. So Kevin, let me start with you and this particular slide. Could you go back? Or actually, let me ask it before we get to the slide here.
Okay.
What is the role of the 63 by 30 national table in driving progress?
So the way that I see it and my team sees it and our company sees it is that we are a media company. So from our perspective, our role at this table is to make sure that people are on the same narrative, they're talking the same statistics, they have the same KPIs, so that we can find where the intersectionality works, for whatever brand or program they're working on, right? Whether it's mental health or coaching or multi-sport, the fact is that if we can work together, we can help tell that story, right? So from the larger platform, the resourcing is substantial. It's never enough, of course, in our teams, but the opportunity is to be able to see the vision downstream to local where things are happening and bring that back to tell the story, to make sure that the sports fan, the viewer, is seeing a systemic strategic communications, because we're trying to create a movement, right? We're trying to make a change. We, as a company, don't advocate for things necessarily because we're a journalistic organization, but we do know that there's a huge deficit, and so part of our responsibility, social responsibility, is to be part of the progress that frames that, allows people to enter into it and have a dialogue around it that is complete and systemic.
Gotcha. These three strategic priorities you see behind here are three that will have been at the center of Project Play 2024 and will continue to be a focus, in part because all three can make a major contribution to 63 by 30, right? Revitalizing in-town leagues means you can reach kids at scale. Encouraging sports sampling means there's just a greater variety of sports to, for kids to play. And then training all coaches, we know that's important to 63% because it's not all about recruitment, it's about retention. And retention is a matter of developing coaches who can meet the child's, interests. Kevin, what role, or how can ESPN be helpful in supporting these?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your team and all the people in this room, because it's galvanizing the movement, right? So we're collectively have the same kind of social goals in this space. And so for ESPN, I want to be absolutely clear. In a corporate social responsibility role, my job is not a foundation. My job is to make sure that the business is doing the right thing, the right way within the sector that we're in. And we made a decision 10 years ago to really look at where we could make the greatest change. We do great stuff in cancer research and fundraising, but where could we be in sport and really take a leadership position? And so we created a strategy that was around access to sport for youth empowerment through sport. And then we funded that, but ultimately what we were trying to do was to get storytelling back, because here's why it's important beyond just the scope. Every single company that you're going to ask for money, or even nonprofits, there's a brand identity, a brand love, there's a business of the business, right? So I am clear that my business is priority. And my leader has said we have 4 priorities for the company, of which one of them is expand the audience. And so we looked at expand the audience, and what we found out, I should also start with our mission statement at ESPN is to serve the sports fan anytime, anywhere. We live by this. And so that serve piece is really critical. So finding these moments of clarity to be able to go and be part of the change that happens. So the expand the audience, we knew 10 years ago that kids were dropping out of sports at just huge rates. All of our partners with the leagues, our corporate partners, Under Armour, Nike, Adidas, I always tell everybody, we're agnostic because all of those are our partners, right? So, but they all have shared values about getting youth back into sport because it is the funnel to fandom. So why is fandom important, right? Because we serve the sports fan. So if we are not serving the sports fan, we're not getting to basically fandom. Why it's important to us to expand that audience is that the funnel is that you come in from 6 to 17 years old, that you become that fan based on 2 major principles of avidity. One is that you play, that you actually play in sports. Organized sports, free play, but mostly organized sports. That makes you a fan. It's like, I want to say, I have the number here, it's almost 6.5 times more likely that you will be a super fan by coming into that ultimate funnel, right? The second thing is your parents. Are they fans? Then you're 3 times more likely. And why is that important to us? Because if you're a fan and you are a sports fan, what are you likely doing? You're in your community playing, you're going to Dick's Sporting Goods, you are buying, you're playing at youth sports league, but you're also watching ESPN, right? We know this. Our research proves that that's the case. So for us to do that, we need to make sure that we're very strategic, working with well thought out organizations that have that kind of North Star in place. And let me tell you why we are doing it and what some success. And I'll go very quickly here, Tom, because I got to do a little marketing. So the important thing is, so we've had some great success, and the first great success was working with Project Play with the Don't Retire Kid campaign, right? I hope you guys all remember that, where with Kobe Bryant, which was really an entry point to say, we knew the 8 reasons why kids were dropping out sports, and so we really focused on that. And then we lost Kobe, we lost a little momentum, and then that pandemic hit us, and then we slowed down, and then it doubled the numbers young people not engaged. So, but what we have done over the last decade is we've invested in this space, but remember, my outcome is storytelling. I want good stories. I have to go to our producers and tell these stories, but I have to tell them on a linear, you're a journalist, you know I have to convince that this is a journalistic integrity moment. But we've been able to do that specifically with things like Unified Sports for Special Olympics. We became the global presenting sponsor to create an entry point for people with and without intellectual disabilities to expand globally, and we've been able to triple the number of coaches, athletes, and teammates at Special Olympics. Thanks to great governance and leadership by Tim Shriver and Mary Davis. But the other piece, so we've gone from like almost 182%. And by the way, when we give money, it's attached to very serious grants and KPIs. We're part of the Walt Disney Company that requires us to be able to formulate what those KPIs and changes are. The other piece is that I'm really proud of, which is our efforts to really focus on women's sports and look at the equity positioning of that. And yes, we've seen Caitlin Clark, and look what has happened. But we have been trying to make sure that we're moving that needle with Title IX and what Billie Jean King has been doing, and make sure that we're actually getting funding and that corporations are funding. So now you see the Final Four for women's sports in basketball actually outproduce the men's Final Four.
Woo!
Okay? What amazing thing is that? But there's also organizations like the Women's Sports Foundation, and so we used our marketing ability to create a program called Sports for Life, which is to make sure that particularly Black and brown girls and Indigenous girls were introduced to sports and stayed into sports. But not only did we do that by making them, do third-party granting, that's easy to do, get numbers. But then we did the research to demonstrate what was happening from that. So then we got anecdotal and functional research back saying that girls felt they belonged. They believed that they had stronger leadership capacity. They believed that they created a community of like-minded people in their schools or in public places to be able to move forward. That is incredibly important as you go into life. And so that functional piece is really important to us. And just the last piece I would just say is that as we move forward, our commitment, 6330, is to keep hearing from all of our partners about what their goals are. Because if I don't know your goals broadly, I can't help you achieve them in storytelling, et cetera. So we have selected 4 areas, and they are fitting perfectly into this area, these 3 areas, which is coaches. We want in-town leagues, youth sports. We want to bring money back to the local markets, to our great panelists here. But we also want to encourage sports sampling, because the one thing, as you may all know, we have many analysts, 27 of them, including people like Belichick, that are our analysts, right, that are coaches. We want to talk to them about doing and scribing into a movement about a campaign that will happen hopefully at the end of this year that will talk about that. And the fourth thing is we don't talk a lot about it, but we know it's fundamental to everything, which is, are you having fun, right? You've got to have fun. And so our parents, our coaches, our caring adults, we want to make sure that we bring that to the table with our partners. Even if we're competitors, we want to make sure we're in the space. We're glad to work with any media company and any organizations to try to help this story, because we all have the shared values.
You talk about storytelling. I want to bring Kim into this. And the reason we are motivated around a Project Play Communities Council is because there are good stories to be told. There's stuff that is working in communities. I'm thinking about in Tacoma, which is one of the 14 or so state of play reports we produce. There's this partnership between the schools and the park and recs, which is super innovative and makes you just want to say, let's replicate this. Let's package it.
Right.
Let's get it up to the national table. Let's get them thinking about how to scale up such a thing so these stories don't, just stay local. How important do you think it is, Kim, that we scale what's working locally?
Well, many of you probably have the Project Play Tacoma Pierce County in your hands. I saw them in the back, so read that report. It's awesome. But I firmly believe that local community is where things happen, and that's a great example of the local community coming together, the Parks and Recs, to develop a program that probably can be used in other communities across and even at like a national level. I'm here because my grandparents started a sporting goods store in Tacoma, Washington, and their love of athletics emulated into founding the Names Family Foundation. So we've been championing sports and health and wellness for over 30 years. And our ability to, and for my grandparents to see the need locally and to act on it was imperative. And I look at, like, we have a lot of community partners here that came at a State of Play because they're so excited. And I think being able to see the gap locally and act on it is what really drives community and is where true change takes place. And those ideas can be used in other communities, and I really think it's going to benefit everybody all around. So State of Play report has just been a great window into what's going on in our community, and I think it parallels a lot of what's going on to other communities.
You know, and another great window that we now have because of this new national data set of 50,000 or so homes, it's robust enough that it can be broken down by state and can be broken down by like 23 or 26 different subgroups, not just male, female, so not just gender and not just race, but English as a second language of the home, health insurance status, disability, income, all of it. So you can really have very crisp ideas of where the gaps are that need to be filled, where the equity gaps are. And when we talk about getting to 63%, where's the best place? Where can you find those numbers most easily is through these equity gaps. So Christina, tell me about like Colorado. I mean, Colorado, for instance, sits at 54%. And we told you about that, and you're like, well, let's do Project Play Colorado. Tell me what Project Play Colorado is, and what are you hoping to achieve, and how are you going to get there?
Sure. So UCHealth partnered with Aspen. I'm really excited that we can announce it here, that we're launching this statewide initiative. UCHealth launched, and UCHealth, for those that aren't from Colorado, is a Colorado-based healthcare system. And so we find it very important that we invest into our communities. We launched a program called Ready, Set, Go, where we have been working with partners that are like-minded to elevate the health and wellness of our state. We assume because Colorado is a healthy state that we are the healthiest state, and we're not. And so through Ready, Set, Go, we're working to change that. Project Play came to us as a great way for us to impact the youth in our community and really rallying behind the idea that as a state, we might be able to make a real difference, not only in getting kids active, but helping make them healthier. We believe at UCHealth that we don't want you to come see us, which is kind of an unusual thing to say. But our intent here is really to help reduce healthcare costs by having healthy kids and healthy communities. How can we impact them as adults and not have as high of medical bills or costs that they incur? So we're looking at it a lot of different ways, both short-term and getting kids active and healthy, but long-term helping make them healthy adults. Mm-hmm. At the table with us are other like-minded organizations that you're helping bring along with us. That's youth sports, that's local corporations, and UCHealth at the forefront of that to lead the conversation about how we make our community healthy.
And the high school federation.
High school federations, mm-hmm. sports corps, mm-hmm. Other, sort of leagues that have mm-hmm. bubbled up, the professional sports teams, You name it, we're trying to bring to the table because collectively we can accomplish a lot. Now, if I, as UC Health, go at it by myself, there's no way I'll be successful. So we need the research, we need the support of all these different organizations to make that successful.
And what's great about Colorado is it's an asset-rich environment, right? It is. You've got, I mean, it's the only state that dedicates lottery funds to support parks and recreation. It's the home of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and many national governing bodies of sports. So you have a lot of sport expertise. We launched Project Play in Aspen back in 2013, and this summer we will release a State of Play report with the Colorado Health Foundation on a rural region from Aspen to Parachute. That's gonna, so like there's a lot going on, but it's also, Colorado's also the classic example of it. You're gonna hear this term a lot from me going forward. It's a classic example of a landscape that is programs rich and systems poor.
Absolutely.
The silos aren't connecting. Much greater efficiencies can happen by simply getting folks in the room and saying, okay, what piece do you have? Or, okay, maybe that's my lane. Where can we partner? How can we come together to maybe advocate for state policy that makes sense? Players Health has a really fascinating bill they're putting on the table in Colorado. So, yeah, I mean, where do you see it? I mean, just getting around a table together to develop a collective voice.
Yeah, I mean, you say asset rich, and that's absolutely the case. We have a lot of opportunity for our families and residents of Colorado to be active and healthy, but some don't have the ability to do that for a variety of reasons. Cost, transportation, and so part of this conversation is how are we developing a program that meets the needs of the broader community and opening their eyes to the opportunities that are there, but we need those systems to talk to one another in order to make that happen, and they don't currently. And hopefully we are leading this effort as a catalyst for other states to then implement what we come up with, because we're hoping that we're successful in getting our kids active.
Gotcha. Well, I know we're on a little bit over time here, so I want to compress one quick thought, maybe 20 seconds or less, Kevin. He put this term on the table that I love. It is called what? And what is your call to action around it?
Cooperation. I believed in forced collaboration because I don't have enough money to get everybody in the room to work together the way they want to. But like mind, like missions, to be able to work together to ultimate goals, we can find where we can invest in you, tell your story broadly so that everybody wins. But it has to have this shared value ability. Even if they're competitors, I guarantee you we can make all boats rise.
Absolutely. So we were going to do this little exercise where I was going to ask each of you to turn to each other and in 30 seconds or less, share what you think is the key to 63, but since we're running over a little bit, I'm going to ask you to do that informally after we leave the room, maybe at lunch or otherwise. It's a, well, there you go. People have voted in. Anyway, you're ahead of me. Very nice. So what's the greatest opportunity to lift sport participation rate to 63% by 2030? 75% of people believe in, that's interesting, revitalize local leagues. That's huge. Sports sampling, focus on equity, train more coaches, improve systems, and scale what works. Excellent. Cool. Really appreciate it. Continue the conversation around that. All right, listen, well, thank the panelists. Please grab them afterward.